if you step over here this way, these beams are here because they supported a gear and drum pulley situation. The water wheel axle would have been a little bit to our right, but that part doesn't exist anymore. For some reason that's gone, but this stayed. Big, strong pieces of wood here, and they supported, like I say, this gear, and this gear would have been a relatively small one, say 20 inches in diameter, meshing with teeth that were bolted onto the rim of the water wheel. And the reason for all this was that the water wheel turns slowly, like 10 RPM, and they needed, for the overhead shafts, like 300 RPM. So this was the first, this gearing was the first speeding up, and then there would have been a, speculatively said, 7-foot diameter pulley here, and then that would have gone up to a smaller pulley on the first floor. So
and these beams are the originals?
These are very much original, yeah.
Some massive trees.
Yes. One thing I was going to show you is that these lines here are from a Daniels planer. We have a Daniels planer in remote storage, and a Daniels planer can work over the middle of a piece of wood. A circular saw does not. So the circular saw lines are always at an angle to the edge of the wood, because the axle of the circular saw is off to the side. So so if you see lines over the middle of a piece of wood, you're looking at a Daniels planed piece of wood. Daniels patented his machine in 1834 when cast iron was still at a premium. It was much later that a modern sort of planer with a roller, bunch of blades, came into being. Yeah, it's kind of rotted away there. We try not to bring people down here because it's not really safe to walk around on this floor. Until 2010, we had a number of machines, and four big heavy ones and a few other things down here. And it was really impressive to look at, and I would tell people, every museum basement should look like this, but it wasn't good for the machines. But it was great looking. But I think the floor was flatter then, because Irene came in here and sort of undermined it. There's a bunch of pipes and tunnels of some sort, small scale tunnels and big scale pipes under the floor here, I think, because the floor became much more uneven after that, and I think after Irene. There are two stone columns, one of which we can see from here, and we don't know what they are. Undoubtedly they're for supporting some sort of machinery. Probably, I would think that this would have been from the cotton mill era, from 1870 to 1886, but it could have been earlier. But I tend to think of the cotton mill as having heavier equipment than the rifle finishing works.
The floor itself didn't get wet. It's just so much dampness down here from the flood. The wood was going like this.
Oh, right, yeah.
Near the walls on certain areas.
Right, yeah.
And we had to go up there and cut into them and redo them, and so they sit flat. That's what happened. I just warped the boards up.
In 2 different winters, I think we did it, yeah. We'd slit the board along its length, and that would give it enough slack that we could flatten it down. Then we get some large machine and put it on it for a few weeks. We're talking over an inch high wave in the floor here. So
they buckled up just like that. Just like that in some areas.
And then there's another spot up in here where the post on the first floor doesn't quite line up with the beam that's under it. And so the floor has sunk about 3/4 of an inch around that post. So I put in a little jack device in there to stabilize it. With luck, it'll be holding. One of the interesting things is that there's a panel up there in the floor about 8 feet by 10 feet that Battison arranged for. We own a large steam engine and has a flywheel on it 11 feet in diameter. And he wanted to have that as an exhibit and probably actually run it with compressed air, not steam, probably. And beautiful machine, but big. And the idea was to be able to actually lift out that panel with jacks and then cut out a piece of it, put it back in place, and then you'd be able to have that flywheel. Half of the flywheel would extend down into the basement and the other half would be above. But I think it's probably just as well that that didn't work out. It's just too big for this building. Yeah, so this is collected stuff. We have a lot of pulleys down here on the shelves and on the beams. Ann Lawless was talking about moving them all upstairs, and I says, I think that's going to be too big, and I stopped counting them at 200. They're not being made anymore. Remember Edgar Allan Poe's story, The Cask of Amontillado, Amontillado being a wine. In the story, a man invites a friend down to see the cask of Amontillado. Then he gets the man drunk and walls him up in there. So I come out here on the little platform and say, would you like to see my Amontillado?